Hello and welcome to the Friday Focus, where we talk all about the industry news, what is happening in the world of photo and camera. And I am joined here with my co-host, Mr. Vrobel. How are you doing today, sir?
I'm doing good. Hi, everybody. How are you, TJ?
I am doing well, and it looks like we have a pretty packed house today. I'm going to say hi to a few of our friends. Hello, Tech Gear Talk. Hope you are doing well. Jim Summers wanted to say hello. I'm happy you're here. I am not happy that you are COVID furloughed. Sorry to hear that. But like you said, you're making the best of it. Every day is the weekend, and that is why my camera and I will be casting our shadow in Utah next week.
Wow.
I love it. I love it. I love it. Safe travels, my friend. Christopher Gilbert is here. We all know that he is just here for the music. And also, if we have any Fuji help, he's here to help us. Hello, Mr. Facebook user from Columbus, Ohio. Don't know who that is, but hello. Hope you're doing well. Jen Stitt says, yo, yo, yo. Hello, Jen. Thank you so much for joining us. And if this is your first time here, welcome. If you've been here before, it's good to see you again. It's good to see you again. I wanted to share our creator of the week, and that is Hobby to Habit. Loving these shots that we see here. Some fall color coming in on the right, and that awesome nighttime long exposure shot. So every week we like to share just a creator in the area that tags us on social media. And this week it is Hobby to Habit. So we'll be sharing some of their photos on our Instagram throughout the next week. So congratulations on being our creator of the week. Moving on from there, I want to let you guys know that we did officially launch our Prints by Pixel. So this is a service that you can come in. We have kiosks here in store that you can bring your memory card in and get your photos printed in a very high quality format. Or if you just want to do it from the comfort of your own home. I almost said the comfort of your own store, but comfort of your own home, you can go in, create an account, and create your images and bring those images to life. We love printing. Me as a photographer, I have my prints, all over the house, but it's time for a refresh. So I'm going to be doing some newer, more landscape stuff for the house right now. It's just more portraits and wedding photos. But I'm going to be printing some more here very soon, some nice canvases. But we have cards. We're ready for the holiday. We have a ton of templates in there as well. So if you want to get ahead of the curve, get those family photos put into a card, you can do that over at the website. That is printsbypixel.com. So again, super easy to use. It steps you through everything. You can fix the crops, but it is just another way that we want to help you guys create awesome art. And if you have any questions, you can reach out to us at social@thepixelconnection.com. And we'll be more than happy to help you. Or you'll notice there's even a little live chat thing that we monitor on the bottom right-hand corner of the site. Moving on, I want to let you know that we will be dropping a new episode of the Talking Pixels podcast. That is where myself and Justin Gamble talk all about the business of photography. We don't really talk about gear. We don't really talk about, news like this show. This is all about taking your hobby to that next level where it can become a career. So we actually just recorded an episode with Joe Edelman last week. So that'll be going live here pretty soon. And we're rounding out right now season 1. So we are there's a couple more episodes that are coming, and then that will we're going to be preparing and even this show too. We're going to pause with the holiday season coming up, and then look towards kind of season 2 of that as well. So moving on, I want to do just some housekeeping notes here at the store. We get these calls all the time. We are open here at the store, so you can come in if you need to pick something up from 10 to 7 Monday through Friday and 10 to 5 on Saturday. And we are still offering our curbside pickup. So if you want to pull up and pop the trunk, we can put your purchases right in the back for you for a completely contactless shopping experience. Also, if you do come in the store, we want to let you know that we're doing our best to keep everything COVID free. We're making sure that our team members are system free. We're always wearing a mask. We have a ton of hand sanitizer. We spray everything down. So again, we're doing our part just to make sure that if you do shop in store, it is a comfortable experience. So what are our goals for today? Well, it's pretty simple. There's 3 goals. Number 1 is we want to update you on the photography related news that you might have missed this week. With the debates going on, with everything going on in the world, photo news is probably not something that's going to hit even NPR at that matter. So, Mike and I, it's our job. We take that on for you. that burden to, give you what we find, the top articles from the week. Also, we have this sneaky little thing where we want to pull you away from the FUD or the fear, uncertainty, and doubt that is going on in your life. And we always say that photography has this awesome power, and that's to pull you away from the things that those stressors in your life, those uncertainties in your life, the fear of, what's coming next. And photography allows you, just like Jim's doing out in Utah, photography has that power just to pull you away from that. So even if you can just talk shop, even for the next, hour or so, that I'm pulling you away from, hopefully, those stressors in your life. And then finally, it's to get you motivated to try something new, something outside of your comfort zone that maybe it turns into something profitable. Maybe you look at one of the articles that we have today and it's a new niche that you want to start exploring and you can start making money off of it. Or if it's just a new hobby that you want to try, a new part of this hobby that you want to try, that is also our third and final goal. So let's go ahead and get into the news. So Fuji X Summit, it looks like this is going to be going live. This was one of the hardest things to find. I feel like this is one of the best kept secrets of the week to get any information about this. Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah, I really had to dig to get separate confirmation from the Fuji Rumors site, and I eventually found it on the FujiX.com/global location. That's where Fuji officially announced it. But not that I didn't trust Fuji Rumors. That guy usually seems to know what he's talking about. But it was good to see Fuji officially saying, yep, we've got an event next week. And it's looking like next week is going to be pretty busy with events. So we're going to have a lot of news next week.
Absolutely. So, what is for people that might not know? I mean, we do have another Facebook user that jumped on here. It's their first time here. They are a Fuji fam, XT3 and GFX Hunt 100. Welcome. But what is the X Summit about? Like in the past, what have they talked about? What have they done at these things? In the past they were, in person. This year it's live. So what is the X Summit?
Well, the X Summit is kind of what we're doing here. It's a live event held with some of Fujifilm's higher up managers and usually a few Fuji X photographers to talk about what's coming up for Fuji. And my esteemed co-host can neither confirm nor deny anything about Fuji at this current moment. If you ask him any questions, he'll tell you that he has to go vacuum a cat and quickly disappear. So I am going to be very careful about what I say, but what I'm hoping for is that we're going to see a new lens roadmap at this event. There are some rumors that there might be one coming, and as a Fuji user, I'm always looking for new glass. So I'm hoping that we will see what Fuji's got coming in the pipeline.
Absolutely. And, I really don't know anything about this event at all or what's coming out. But as a Fuji user, any announcement to me is exciting. It's just furthering the brand, with, talk of camera companies like Olympus being bought out and all the doom and gloom. I just love that there's innovation in this space, whether it's in the GFX lineup, whether it's in the X series, whatever it might be. I'm excited that they're just pushing forward, pushing new products. And it also kind of gives us back to back to that normal, or what that new normal is going to look like, with regular events, announcements, and, hopefully a supply chain to back it up. So it'll be interesting to see, what's coming from Fuji. And like Christopher Gilbert, our esteemed tech rep says, who knows? He knows, but he's not allowed to tell. So,
come on, Fuji, give me some new toys. I'm ready.
Exactly. We'll all be, sitting there and hitting refresh on all the live blogs and stuff in 6 short days. So again, that's 9 a.m. If you do a search, if you just go to the Fuji Global site, it takes you to the YouTube, just their YouTube page. So I'm assuming next week or as we get closer, you'll be able to, they're going to make this more of a public thing for people to join. Sorry, a question came in. You don't have the corner on looking for new glass as a Fuji user. Nikon users, at least this Nikon user, is always looking for new glass releases. Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Anything that can help me achieve a creative vision or make my job easier, you can definitely sign me up. So you had alluded to this a little bit earlier, but it looks like we have a second announcement, which is on the 14th. At 12 a.m. So I feel like this is going to be less of a live announcement type of thing than it will be, more press release, unless, they're staying up all night. to announce this at 12 a.m. But it looks like there's going to be some updates to the Z lineup, and these have been rumored for the last couple weeks. What are some of the things that we might know about this so far?
Yeah, so we talked a little bit about this last week, and what all the rumors seem to be saying is these are incremental updates to the existing Z6 and Z7, but with some stuff that Nikon has needed. Is going to have the same image sensor, but it's going to have dual card slots and a battery grip that actually has controls on it, and some other nice features. They're better autofocus that just came in the Z5. So this looks like it'll be a nice upgrade for the Nikon system. And again, hopefully, like Jim was saying, there'll be some new news about glass there, but there hasn't been a whole lot of rumors around that. So we will see.
Absolutely. And I feel like Canon did, something similar. They put out the R and the RP and they kind of tested the waters. And then with the, R5 and R6, they really came out with a solid offering. I'm hoping that that's what we see with the Z6 II and the Z7 II, is just that kind of maturity. Like, okay, we tested it, you guys like it, we'll kind of continue down that route and give photographers what they want, because there are a ton of Nikon customers out there that are looking for some of these features. So it'll be awesome if, like Jim says here, he's a Nikon shooter, things like dual card slots come to life and other features. They have to. I mean, at this point, right, with Canon making the releases, Sony, Panasonic, even with the S5, these cameras these companies are putting out awesome cameras, and it's hard. I would think as a Nikon user, it would be hard to not at least peek at some of those other things that are out there.
Yeah, Nikon needs to keep their foot on the gas here, and it feels like they haven't until very recently. And there's a rumor coming up later that shows that, maybe Nikon's waking up too, kind of like Canon did about a year ago, and starting to push things forward. And hopefully next week's event is the first step of that.
Absolutely. Moving on, like I said yesterday, in with the new, out with the old. So my German is a little rough, but let me figure it out. Film is dead, I think is what it says. No, I'm kidding. Film is not dead, but Nikon thinks it is. So a lot of people don't realize this, but Nikon still had a film camera on the market. The F6 could still be bought as new. Obviously, it wasn't on shelves in all the camera stores across the US, but it was still a product that you could get until now. They have announced it, as well as I believe it was the SB300 Speedlight, the D5, the 50mm 1.2, and the 24 2.8. Those were all discontinued or put on the discontinued list. So yeah, we wanted to let you guys know that actually there was still a professional film camera that you could buy, and it was not inexpensive either. I mean, it was
only $2,600.
Yes, it was full price. It wasn't a discounted thing at all, but it was a professional film camera. So
yeah,
there's probably people out there that are, going to grab one before they can't anymore. But yes, it is no longer something that you can purchase.
Yeah. And now we're kind of teasing because I last shot film 20 years ago, 15 years ago. But if you are the kind of person who wants a film camera, it looks like they've been discontinued in Germany, but not in the United States as of yet. So maybe it's time to rush out and grab one of these $2,600 film bodies if you need it.
Yeah, and let us know. We will do our best to special order that from Nikon for you. Absolutely. So IRIX is a company that it's a third-party lens manufacturer. They have some really unique lenses. They're similar to like the Laowas of the world, but we talked about this a little bit last week. But the news here is obviously, some cine lenses, which is awesome. Sigma makes great cine lenses, a lower cost alternative, because normally like a Leica cine set, for example, which are used a lot in Hollywood, you can't just buy one lens. You have to buy the whole set. And it's like $500,000 just for the lens set. So if you want the, as more and more people are doing video, especially on the R5, the R6, Sony, all the different manufacturers, they're wanting to build out rigs. And with that are things like follow focus, similar sized focus rings, all these reasons to, look at a cine lens. And these are different. Cine lenses are different than regular lenses, more on the design of the outside. The inside, like the 18 to 35, for example, from Sigma, inside is very, very similar. It's the outside that matters. So if you look at these little grooves that are in here, that's for things to, like when you're putting it onto a rig, for you to be able to use like the follow focus, or if it's a zoom lens, you know, it'll have that track as well. And you'll notice all of those are at the same point. So if I was going from this 45 to this 150 on a cine rig, everything would just line up. So I wouldn't have to rebuild the rig every single time. Now, what's interesting here, though, is the fact that they are made for Canon RF mount, Nikon Z mount, and the L mount Alliance. So these are mirrorless first lenses, is what it would seem. And, you know, they might have other ones and you could adapt them, because again, you don't really have autofocus with cine lenses. But it's cool to see that a company is doing these mirrorless first cine lenses. They're answering kind of what the market is asking for.
Yeah, and actually, I think these lenses have been available for the older style mounts, the EF and the F mounts, for a while, and probably PL if they are cine lenses, but they are now all releasing for mirrorless. And again, Laowa, I think, is a great example where these are kind of specialist lenses. There's an 11 millimeter and a 15 millimeter, so they're really wide, and 45 standard, but then a 150 millimeter macro cine lens. But you know, IRIX seems to think the world is going mirrorless, and they're not wrong. So they're trying to keep up with the times. And again, this feels like the second behind Laowa RF third-party lens we've seen. So good to see them coming out with glass. Absolutely.
Moving on from there. So sorry, that one little note shouldn't be there, but the Zeiss, what is this? What's the actual model number again?
ZX1.
ZX1. So this is a camera that has been pretty much vaporware for a really long time, and it's a full frame camera that has Android built in. It is coming in at the price of around $6,000, but you can edit your photos right with Lightroom on the back. I mean, what more do you need from that? You need enough, right? Totally worth $6,000.
Yeah, this camera, I mean, I remember seeing pictures of this camera. I double checked back in 2008. They were showing it off at a photo show in Germany, and it's got a lot of interesting ideas. I mean, using Android for their operating system will help them keep it up to date, and running Lightroom CC on the camera so that you actually could theoretically edit, and so that it automatically syncs to your Lightroom CC catalog when it's within Wi-Fi range. These sound like great ideas. It's that $6,000 price tag where I kind of start to draw back, because I guess this is for people who want to spend Leica kind of money, but prefer a much more angular design. It's other than that, I can't see a huge market for this, in spite of the really interesting ideas they have built into this camera. Oh, the other one that I forgot to mention is it does not have a card. It has 512 gigabytes of built-in SSD storage. So no cards to remove. You just either plug in your USB-C or get it onto Wi-Fi.
Absolutely. And it isn't going to be a phenomenal camera. Probably. I mean, it's Zeiss, so we know it's going to be good, sharp optics. We know that, you know, it has the technology to do it. It's just interesting that it's now finally coming out after like 12 years of being rumored. You know, you kind of seen it showed off, but now it looks like it's ready for the ones of people to buy them.
Yep.
So this is an interesting one too. This is another camera that has a built-in storage, but this is for the opposite end of the market. Now, this is an expensive camera, $10, but look at what it offers. So it's a Super 35 sensor, which is great for Hollywood. It does 4K at 420 frames per second. And it's really cool. If you go over to the FreeFly website and they have a landing page for this camera, go look at how slow 420 is and 1440 is. I mean, you're seeing like drops, you know, go super slow and then hit the water. I mean, it's really, really cool to see what this camera can do. Now, this is meant to be a high-speed video cameras like the slow-mo guys. Like, this is their ideal setup. And the fact that it's E-mount and they also have the red mount available, this is definitely a cine announcement. But if we look back like 5 years ago and even 10 years ago, a camera like this would cost you in the $40,000 and $50,000 for high-speed cameras back in the day. This is now coming in at 10. So it's just, I love seeing cameras come out that are making it easier for creators, and creators maybe not at my level. Like, I'm not going to spend $10,000 on this, but that person that's looking to get a, film into Netflix or Amazon streaming or Hulu, now they're going to be able to tell that story or use this to tell that story.
Yeah, the things that really jumped out at me, other than the slow-mo guys reference, where it's like, I've seen slow-mo guys do 340,000 frames per second. This is nothing. But you can, one of the things they talk about in their video is you can crank down the vertical resolution and up the frame rate. So you can get up to close to 10,000 frames per second. It's 9,000 plus something if you go narrow, which again, I think for industrial uses, this is probably a really useful camera. But for filmmaking, the other interesting thing about it is they say it's the size of a book and it weighs 720 grams. And in that video you talk about, which I also recommend, go to their website and take a look. It's pretty impressive. They're flying this thing around on a drone, and it's not all that huge of a drone. And, drone photography with ultra slow-mo, this is a pretty impressive combination in a pretty small package.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So the title that I had in our show notes was Elements is still around. But yeah, so Adobe Photoshop Elements 2021 and Premiere Elements 2021 are getting a huge update coming. And that's where that note should be October. It's like October 20th, I think, is when the Adobe Max is happening. So a lot of times, like, I've looked at Photoshop Elements and I just think, wow, they have it really easy, because I'm used to Photoshop where to get those same, the sky stuff. I mean, I had to put like 10 layers in and, modify them all individually. And, I just wanted to remind people, especially if you're just getting started, that, Photoshop Elements for Premiere or Photoshop is still a very viable tool, and they are updating it. And if you don't want the subscription base, you can buy it without having that subscription. So if you are a creator that's just getting started, it's still worth, definitely worth looking at. Some of the features were like the sky replacement stuff that we had talked about. They're getting some video features pulled in from the full version of Premiere. But again, I want to let you guys know that there are alternatives outside of the full-on tools that are out there. Mike, what do you use to edit your stuff? I mean, are you a Photoshop user or?
I am primarily a Capture One user with a little bit of Photoshop thrown in from time to time, and I switched over from Lightroom mainly because of tethering, which we're going to talk about in a minute or two here. And as a semi-pro, professional food photographer for my blog, high-end amateur photographer for all of my other photography, I always liked Lightroom's ability to handle large photo libraries a lot better than what I could see in Elements. But again, like you said, if you're not into that subscription price, $100 and you're done doesn't seem that bad. The one thing I do think is interesting is kind of twisting the knife for full-size Photoshop is this looks like it's getting the sky replacement before real Photoshop does. And that's got to hurt. I know, Luminar has been pushing it for a while, and I'm sure there are a bunch of real Photoshop users who would love to have that. Hopefully, when Adobe Max comes out, it's coming.
Absolutely. And I just want to share a couple of the other tools that are going to be built in. They have a thing where you can add motion to your static images. So it actually looks kind of cool. And you've seen this before where, the images do move. Let me pull up just to make it a little bit easier. You guys have seen these features before where, you have the zoom, where it kind of zooms in. You see how it kind of creeps in there? So that's now going to be easily creatable. You're going to have quote graphics. So if you are doing social media stuff, that's going to be built in. Look at this landscape, though. This one click, replace sky, remove haze, erase unwanted objects. I mean, look how clean that photo looks. I mean, and that's one step, super easy. They're doing this duo.
Switch back to that photo for a second. The other thing that they're doing right that Luminar always touted is notice that the reflection of the colors in the sky changes in the water so that it doesn't look obviously quote unquote photoshopped, that they're doing the adjustments for you.
It's because it's powered by Adobe Sensei. Duh.
Acronym of the day.
They have the duotones, which I think is, well, that's not, whatever. But this was interesting. So look how far apart, like you could take a COVID photo and make it a regular photo.
That's right.
Where
Ready?
actually, like, they take you through and they like teach you how to do it, which is really cool with Elements is built in. And the other Adobe products are starting to do this, but they'll actually do a tutorial on how to, move and clone. But again, the stuff that we're showing here is all one-click things. They're just making it super easy for you to do. Grab my screen here. Sorry, just had to switch on back. All right, so that will be coming soon. So this is one that you were pretty excited about. New Lightroom plugin allows for tethered capture with Sony cameras.
Yes, and this was, I used to shoot Sony back before I swapped over to Fuji for size and weight reasons. And one of my frustrations was Sony and Fuji to a certain extent don't tether well with Lightroom. It used to only be, Canon and Nikon were the only things that would tether. And with Sony, you used to have to do this Rube Goldberg of run the Sony software and it writes things to a folder and then Lightroom watches that folder and it pulls the pictures in, but you don't have any control of the camera on screen. And it's part of why I switched to Capture One is their tethering is just much better and rock solid. And this plugin is from Tether Tools, who has a very good reputation. I use a lot of their cables for my tethering, and I think that they may actually make tethering Lightroom from a Sony camera a viable option now. And I think that'll help Lightroom and Sony users. So I was excited to see this one come out.
Absolutely, and it always has been.
Check out Jim Summers' last comment.
Oh, sorry. I'll go through them real quick. So Jim Summers, last time I shot film, I had to blow on the print to develop it. They should use that, the de-social distance feature.
Yep.
I wouldn't exactly say Nikon tethers well. Exactly.
Yeah, Jim's got a lot more experience with Nikon than I do, so I would trust his judgment.
Absolutely. But yeah, so Smart Shooter is Tether Tools is software. They purchased it a while ago, but they're just now starting to get it out to camera stores. Is something that we carry. But now just to have that plugin built in that you don't even have to have all this other heavy lifting just makes life so much easier. Absolutely. So let's jump into the old rumor roundup. So it looks like we might be getting, I feel like that we've talked about this several times, but possibly an M50 Mark II. And before we jump into that, we do have Tech Gear Talk here, and he actually did a video about, I believe he said he was not pre-ordering. So I'd love to get his feedback just in the comments. What would it take for you to upgrade your M50 to an M50 Mark II? Because it looks like it's rumored to be here soon.
Yeah, and the rumors are surprisingly vague about when. All they're really saying is by the end of the year. But the big addition to this rumor was the actual specs, where in the past it seemed like we had the M7, where the high-end M-body camera specs, and we weren't seeing this one, which is more like the low end of the M bodies. And it looks like we're going to get a 32 megapixel sensor, 14 frames per second shooting, the new dual pixel autofocus 2, 4K 60 with no crop, and I think the no crop is an improvement for the EM50, no IBIS, and a similar EVF to the R6, and a single card slot, which for what is effectively a really low-end camera for Canon doesn't surprise me. But it sounds like a pretty strong set of features for this camera and this body. So good to see them, and hopefully it'll be out soon.
Absolutely. And the M6 Mark II is, we have a lot of M6 Mark IIs go out of here. It's a solid camera, but it doesn't have those video features. It's no slouch, but the M50 has found its way into being like a de facto vlogging camera. Your Talk, actually, he runs a whole Facebook group, just about the M50. So his thoughts, I did want to share with you kind of what his thoughts are. I would definitely pre-order if they have 4K 60, no crop, 32.5 megapixel, clean HDMI out, dual pixel autofocus Mark II, and the upgraded EVF. So, and like he says there, it'll be interesting to see what it does to the M6 Mark II sales.
Yeah.
But look at these two cameras, though. The M6 Mark II tends to be more of a, like, it has the replaceable screen on the replaceable viewfinder on the top. So the screen comes up, this way. It's not that kind of all in one. So I feel like they are very different cameras. I think the M6 Mark II is kind of confused on what it wants to be because it's a phenomenal stills camera. I mean, the images that I got out of mine, phenomenal. I mean, so I took on vacation to Ireland this year, actually. It was, it was great. And I traveled with that. And then the M5, those were the two cameras that I had traveled with. And spec wise, it's awesome. But if this is getting that 20 or 32 megapixel sensor in it, if it's getting 4K 60, if it's getting that EVF needs updated, I mean, this is going to be a kick-ass camera. And it still begs the question, though, are we going to get more lenses to back that up? I mean, it's, like I've said this before, the Canon really has they've never really paid a ton of attention to their crop line of lenses, even with EF. I mean, there's not a ton of EF lenses that are out there. There's some, but this is different because it's a totally new system. So I feel like they have to, because you can't just throw on, a bigger M lens, M mount lens. Also, one thing that he brings up is the M6 is better controls because it does have the three dials on it. The reason I never bought an M50 was because of the lack of dials in my shooting style. I like having more of those tactiles, so I just got rid of it and went to Fuji instead. That was my solution. But hopefully, we'll get custom buttons. We'll have a couple of those kind of ergonomic features as well.
Yeah, and like you said, they really need lenses for the M lineup, and I hope some are coming whenever this camera is announced.
Absolutely. Nikon Z9? What? What's this thing going to be? This looks, by the way, this looks like a totally fake drawing or rendering.
Yeah, no, this is obviously an artist's representation of what they think this is going to look like. So last year, we kept saying, is the giant finally rousing? Are they waking up? This might be Nikon starting to show some signs of life in the mirrorless world. This is going to be their high-end professional camera with a 46 megapixel at 20 frames per second shooting, improved AF, and 2 XQD or CF Express Type B slots in it with a pro body. And pro body means, yes, we can drop it off a skyscraper and you can still use it once it hits the ground. And it's probably going to cost 6 to 7K, maybe more, with the rumor saying it's coming next year. They're hoping they're going to get prototypes to the Tokyo Olympics shooters, and that it will actually be available to the public in the fall. So good on Nikon. If this is where they're going with the Z line, and they're producing a real Z sports / pro body, this would be great for them. It's exactly what they need, and it's the kind of thing that'll build excitement in their Z line, which feels like it's been struggling a bit on the excitement side.
Absolutely. And I think we're going to see something similar come from, Canon as well with and we've talked about those rumors before with like the 1DX. And I think it's going to be a while out because the 1DX Mark III is so new.
Right.
But does this kill off the mirrored line altogether?
Kill is tough. Tony Northrup had a very interesting video about these bodies, and he said that one of the things is the live view through a DSLR, where it's just light, and even the best pro mirrorless bodies, there's that little bit of lag where it has to translate light into the sensor that your eye is viewing. And I have a feeling there are going to be people who hang on to the DSLRs because of that. That said, there are a lot of advantages to the mirrorless bodies, and it feels like a lot of people are shifting towards the Sony A9 bodies because of those mirrorless advantages, and the world is shifting towards mirrorless. So I think Nikon needs to do this, and I think if they get it right, that will bring those D6 shooters over with them. The other interesting rumor that just popped up is that the Sony A9 III, I think it is also coming early next year with a similar body style to this, where it's not a screw-on battery grip; it's physically built in. And again, I think the Tokyo Olympics has all of the Japanese camera companies, trying to get their best stuff out there to showcase what they can do. Oh, the one other rumor that came with this is that this will be accompanied by a 400 f2.8Z lens. So some of that big glass to go with it for sports shooters.
That's what I was just going to bring up, is the fact that they don't really have the long glass to support it. And will a pro want to have that large glass with a weak point of an adapter, in the middle? And I think they're going to have to come out with that, at least the 400 2.8, if not the full line of 300, and have a 600 option, and before people will make this move. And it's interesting that the camera companies were all set for this year's Olympics, and so now it's like, are these paused announcements because of COVID? I mean, they had to pause them anyway, or do you think these are new, like that they're going to
feel new to me? It feels like they are stretching to get this stuff out. I mean, Canon, especially with the R5 overheating with video stuff, feels like they're pushing it out the door as quick as they can. And Nikon the same way, that they just weren't ready with these, and that this year delay is actually going to be good for them. It'll let them get this stuff ready for the Olympics. So I think it's, I mean, COVID is awful, but I think it's helping the camera companies in this one particular case.
Absolutely. And like Jim says, the Olympics are always a good time for the camera manufacturers. That's where they've always kind of strutted their stuff. And as a, Nikon user himself, and he has mirrored and mirrorless, but, he talks about the silent electronic shutter. There's so many things that you can do in body image stabilization that you can do with mirrorless cameras that just aren't available on the mirror side. And he agrees with us that you have to have the 400 2.8. Like, that is the tried and true sports and wildlife photographer lens. The people that are actually making real money, shooting these and needs this type of tool, they need the lens tool as well.
Yeah. The other thing being the other mirrorless advantage that we're actually going to talk about a little later is the shutter. You can get a much higher shutter rate out of mirrorless because, again, physics. You don't have to get that mirror out of the way every time you're shooting. So that is one big advantage to mirrorless for someone like a sports shooter who wants to be able to just hold the shutter down and get a stream of photos at that critical moment, so he can pick the right one out where everything's exactly where he wanted it to be.
Absolutely. And speaking of that 400 2.8 on Nikon, it sounds like
Yep.
you're going to be doing some RF lens announcements as well coming up in 2021.
Yep. Yeah, this is kind of vague, but yeah, Canon needs the same thing for the RF mount for the Olympics. The 800 f11 and the 600 f11 are great lenses for someone like me, who's an amateur bird photographer on the weekends every now and again, but there's no way a pro sports shooter is going to use either of those. So Canon needs some of the big whites out there for this kind of photography, and it looks like they're coming again, coincidentally, just in time for that Olympics.
Right. And what were the ones that were rumored to be coming soon?
The rumors are for a 300 f2.8, and the other one is unknown, just one of the big whites. So again, 400 f2.8, 600 f4. I would guess the 600 f4 just they need the range, and the 300 2.8 is the classic kind of like short end of the telephoto. So I'm guessing they would go to the 600 as the other one, but who knows?
Sony will announce one new lens in October and then 2 fast GM primes in 2021. Now, Sony has a lot of freaking lenses already. What do they need to add to this lineup?
The thing they need to add, based on all the lenses that have come out from Canon and from Nikon recently, is f1.2 lenses. Now, do they need them? I don't think they have to have them from a photography standpoint, but from a marketing standpoint, everybody knocks them for, oh, you've got that little lens mount. You can't get those ultra wide lenses that Canon and Nikon are putting out. I have a feeling Sony's going to put a stake in the ground and says, oh, yes, we can. Here's our 50 millimeter f1.2. Here's our 85 f1.2. Now, the 85 1.2 I would be surprised at, because they just released the 85 1.4 not too long ago. The other one that popped into my head, though, was a 200 f2 or equivalent. Jen Stitt, on the call, loves that lens for Canon. I know a bunch of portrait photographers love that lens for Canon. It feels like that's one of the holes in the Sony lineup that they really could use to fill. So those are my thoughts. You have any that you're thinking they need?
I think they're going to be targeting more of the long white glass. I mean, they've been kind of going down that path recently, with the 2 to 500 and the prime as well. I think they go on the long end, with you, like either the going with your 200, or I don't think they have a 300 2.8.
Oh, they don't. I thought they did. Okay, if they don't, then that's an obvious one.
Mm-hmm. I think that's where it's going. Obviously, I know nothing about this. Even I have a friend that works at Sony, and I remember being at WPPI, and he literally found out the night before when the A7 III was announced. So, don't know anything about it. I think that the longer side that needs some love. And even this image shows that. You know what I mean? It shows that there's a bunch of the smaller lenses, smaller primes, smaller zooms. But as we get up to more of this top pyramid, that's where they're really missing out. And I think that's where I think it's holding people back from making the switch over to Sony, is if they are a wildlife shooter, if they are a sports shooter, to not have those tools at their disposal.
Yeah, and as a wildlife shooter, what I would be interested in, and they're not marketing to me, obviously, is a lighter, longer telephoto, like the equivalent of the old Canon 400 5.6, or maybe a 500 5.6, something that's not quite the monster that the 600 f4 is, but something that's easier to carry around for my bad back and bad knees and all my other body parts that feel like they're going to fall off any minute now.
Absolutely. So let's jump into the education and tutorials block, kicking off with the geek of the week. So you found these are pretty awesome clips that you found here. So the first one is the Sigma FP with the 14 millimeter, but from space.
Yeah, this was a really fun video to watch, where Sigma took that tiny FP body that they've got with their 14 f2.8 lens and attached it to a weather balloon in a crash cage, obviously. And they did it with two of them, and they launched them from England and let them, that's an actual picture in the background there where you can see the curvature of the Earth from the photos that they were getting out of this. Now, they didn't quite make it into space. I got trapped into a rabbit hole, and that's why this wound up in Geek of the Week, where space is about 62 miles up, is the usual definition of space, and weather balloons explode at about 24 miles up when the helium inside gets more powerful than the atmosphere outside, and they just explode. And that's when your Sigma FP, remember the lowercase FP, starts plummeting back towards Earth. And they had parachutes and chase teams, and fun video to watch, and some amazing pictures they got from it.
Absolutely. I wanted to bring this up on screen.
Sorry. Should have kept talking there. Yeah, so they have a pretty impressive crash cage and 2 terabyte external SSDs plugged into the USB-C port on it. And even with that, they said they only were able to they had like 40 minutes from the moment they hit the play button on on the video. The photography, obviously, they had it set like every second, every 5 seconds, to just snap another photo. But the video, they had a timer that once they hit that go button, that 2 terabytes was going to fill up in about 40 minutes. So they had to let it go as quick as they could. But
I want to fast forward here just a little bit as they're.
If I had known, they have another video that is just the stills. Yeah, there you go. Right about there. A video of the stills that is pretty impressive, seeing the photos they were able to get out of this rig.
Absolutely. And being that it is the, small and lightweight, smallest and lightest full frame without IBIS, um, it's awesome to see that they were able to like get away with something like this and just some really cool shots and really cool perspectives. And I mean, that 14 millimeter and even just the sharpness of these photos.
Yeah. Yeah,
It's
those Sigma lenses are killer. Yeah, the only problem they had is, as you can see in that picture there, condensation that froze onto the lens on the video camera, unfortunately.
yeah. And it looks, so these, I mean, they are like trained professionals here too. I think that's worth saying. I think, isn't it?
Oh,
I'm pretty sure it's illegal to do that, right? To send up a weather.
I have a feeling you have to get FAA clearance and probably a bunch of other clearances to do it. But yeah, I wonder if there's a reason they did it in England other than it was Sigma England doing it.
Right. So I would say kids don't try this at home. Sending your camera up in a weather is probably
there goes my afternoon plans.
Definitely not a good idea. And then also, you have a YouTube video here for the types of shutters.
Yeah, so this is from the Fujifilm channel, and they have their At the Workbench series where they talk about the technical details of their cameras. And as a Fuji user, I'm all over those videos when they come out. But this one I found interesting because I think it crosses over to a lot of mirrorless cameras. They talk about the difference between using a mechanical shutter, using electronic shutter, or the one that's always confused me, the electronic first curtain shutter. And when would you want to use one versus the other? The mechanical shutter is, of course, the old flippy mirror. And second shout out to slow-mo guys in this podcast is if you haven't seen the video where they took pictures of I think it's a Canon 70D at ultra high frame rates, so you can watch the shutter open and close in slow motion and the mirror flipping up, go find that one. That's a lot of fun, and that'll show you. I learned a lot about how cameras work just by watching that video. But getting that mechanical shutter out of the way has issues. But it also has advantages if you're a flash shooter like me with most of my food photography and you need that mechanical shutter. Then there's the electronic shutter where it's blazingly fast and it's perfectly silent. And it also has problems with scan rate where you get those weird horizontals if things are moving too fast. And the electronic first curtain shutter where you're trying to balance those two things where the shutter closes, but it was starting electronically. So just fascinating deep dive into the technology. And I know Sony has electronic first curtain shutter, and I'm willing to bet Canon and Nikon do too on their mirrorless. So this is probably a good video for people even outside of the Fuji world, but especially for people like me inside the Fuji systems.
Awesome. Love it. So what is the CAMP framework?
So this was an interesting one for taking a portrait. It's kind of an acronym for things you should walk through to make sure you're getting the picture right. And it's C, composition, A, ambient light exposure, M, modify or add light to that, and P, then pose and take the picture. So talking through what you should be looking at and in what order when you're taking portraits. And, I am definitely not a portrait photographer. So things like this are a huge help to me that one time a year when I get dragged into taking pictures for my daughter's graduation or prom or whatever. So I'm going to keep this one in my bookmarks for the future.
Absolutely. And this is honest. And this is exactly kind of what I follow as a portrait photographer. I've used different acronyms in the past, like the ABCs and ambient and, it goes on from there. But I love this. I mean, getting the composition right. And I think that if more people or if more photographers getting started would follow this, there's a lot of things, especially if you go on your first portrait setup, like to walk at that and just see, and that's what Jim Summers actually is figuring out my acronym, ambient background. So, getting that set up first, take it step by step. Okay, composition. What do I want this to look like? Don't think about anything else. Don't think about the lighting. Don't think about anything else. Just what is the composition that you have in your head. From there, ambient light. Is it going to be a sunset shot? Do you just want to focus on them? Before you just set your lights all up, take it step by step. From there, if you want to, change the light, if you need to add more, then do that. And then finally relax and pose your couple. And when you have your mindset to those separate little bits, it just makes it so much easier as a portrait photographer to kind of step through that framework. And it's
Right,
like
yeah.
I've been doing it for years like that. And it
Yeah,
helps.
and the acronym helps me because I tend to wind up skipping steps. Like oh, hey, that looks great, and start firing away and not think through, okay, what is in the background? Is there something in the corner of the frame that I really don't want there? So this is the kind of thing that really helps me out when I'm live in the field and kind of rushing.
Absolutely. Moving on. Lightroom Mobile, 5 of Julianne's favorite editing tips. So Julianne Acosta, she is the chief evangelist for Lightroom at Adobe. And if you haven't checked out her blog, definitely go do that. jcost.com. Anytime something new comes out, she's sharing, she's talking about it. And she's probably one of the most honest evangelists I've ever met. I remember going to see her, I want to say it was at Photo East or what's it called? The one in New York happens in October.
Photo Plus?
Photo Plus, yeah, used to be Photo East. At Photo Plus, and I remember her talking, and during her presentation, she says, look, it doesn't make sense to me either. I don't know why Adobe did this. I think it's the stupidest thing they've ever done. And it's like, you're the chief evangelist. Like, I figure like evangelism, like just get out there and, push. And she is like the most honest. And what's cool is she drinks her own wine, if you will, or eats her own dog food, in that, everything that she does is how she edits her photos. So in this case, Lightroom Mobile is a software that I've recently started, not recently, but trying to get a little bit more into Lightroom Mobile and how it works, because I know it's getting a lot more features. And last time I looked at it, previous to this, it just wasn't super mature, and now I'm seeing like all these features added. So she shares 5 of her favorite editing tips from the crop modes that are available, how she does color. It's just a really good overall kind of tips and tricks. And then she also often shares on the Lightroom Instagram channel. So that's a great place to find more information, especially as you're kind of scrolling. I tend to follow sources that I can learn something from. So definitely, if nothing else, check out her blog. Her name's Julianne Acosta, and she's been probably like 15 years since Lightroom came out. I think she's been the chief evangelist, if you will. So great person to learn more about that tool.
Yep.
So if you want
a great picture of an iguana there.
Yes, exactly. If you want to learn more about Lightroom, if you want to learn more about landscape photography, if you want to learn about, and hopefully hands-on learning, we are just a couple short months away. It's going to be here before we know it. I think we're about nine-ish months away. July through 29. 2021 will be Pixel Photo Fest, and coming to Cleveland, Ohio. It's the premier hands-on photography learning experience in the Midwest. I mean, there is nothing like it. If you've not been before, you can see there, it's hands-on. It's some of the best instructors in the community, the photography community. We pull in from all over the US to come and teach and train here in Cleveland, Ohio. So mark your calendars now. That'll be July 27th through 29th here in Cleveland. And as more and more speakers are added, they'll be added to pixelphotofest.com. So if you don't want to wait around for that, you can always go to our YouTube channel. If you go to youtube.com/thepixelconnection, we have a bunch of videos on all the live streams that we've done, like this one, first look videos, interviews, all that you can find on our Pixel Connection channel. And we're so close to 2,000 subscribers. So if you could do us a favor and head over to youtube.com/thepixelconnection so we can hit 2,000. And if virtual learning isn't your thing, even though, we do things like this, we do have in-person classes and events. If you head over to thepixelconnection.com/events, you can see all of our trainings that we do here in the store. We have classes. It's a packed class schedule. So you can head over there and sign up from, Canon 101 to Lighting 101. All of those are all on our website. And if you want to sign up, you can do that there. If you just want to hang out and just chit chat, talk cameras, we do have a couple user groups available as well. So we have the Midwest Lumix user group, the Ohio Olympus users, Ohio Fuji Fam, Ohio Canon users, Northeast Ohio Astro we just started. So again, we try to bring people together, like-minded individuals that just want to share, what they create with their cameras. Maybe they have a technical question. And the great thing is with like the Fuji one, Chris is in there and he's our tech rep. So if you need a question answered, he's in there. He can answer that question, or any of the other Fuji users that are in there, can help you out.
If you need a question answered, or a pretty impressive cat GIF, as I found out today when I was scrolling through the Fuji fan.
Absolutely.
Chris is the man.
Absolutely. So if you do want to get the slides from today, we do send them out every Friday at 6 o'clock. You can head over to our website, thepixelconnection.com, and click on that newsletter sign up, and you'll be enrolled for those. You can always reach out to us here at the store with sales or social at The Pixel Connection. Follow us on Instagram, the.pixel.connection, or on Facebook, The Pixel Connection. We're everywhere. Just look for Pixel Connection, and you'll be sure to find us. And I did want to let you know that we are taking a pause on the old Friday focus for now. Coming into the holiday season, we wanted to just kind of pause and come back with season 2, hopefully this January. So stay tuned for more information on that. With everything going on, I think it's time to focus on the weekend. Thank you, Mike, for joining us. Where can people find you online?
Well, before that, I wanted to say thank you to TJ for the opportunity to do this podcast with him, and for Pixel for sponsoring it. And I hope everybody will be back in January when we are. Don't forget about us. I am at dadcooksdinner.com for my food photography and writing, or you can follow me at dadcooksdinner on most of the socials.
Awesome. And if you need anything from us, like I said, look for us, the.pixel.connection, or I'm on Instagram at _TJ Houston. Thank you guys so much, and focus on the weekend. We'll see you.
Bye, everybody.